You got us a congregational song?
I do, Jim.
All right, come on. Come on with it. You want to stand it? Yeah, let's stand.
Let's stand. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's sing. Let's sing along.
So this is a song I wrote with the
There it goes.
lovely Miss Faith Davis, my partner in life. And we wrote this several years back for one of the World Day of Peace services over at Union Church of the Hills. So we'll just allow that to just be divine order, that came up at that point in time. And this morning we'll be talking about zeal, and this is in some ways informed by that, because it's about that life impulse that kind of gives us that urge to go forward with something, anything. I mean, it doesn't necessarily even mean that the thing we're going forward on isn't necessarily even in our best interest. But it is that impulse, that generative impulse that first quickens us to want to move forward. So some of y'all who were here a little earlier, y'all heard a run through this song. And I thought it was pretty good. I hope I do it as well now.
We'll cite it.
This is called Move in Me. Standing in your presence, still holding to a tree. The world in all its essence is more than what it seems. My eyes will be trained into seeing more than one, but your spirit knows the way to make this dream undone. So all I can see is the perfect heart in the plan. Help me be the change in the world I wish to see, to know the unbreakable chain of the truth that sets us free and binds us here together within the love as one, shining in the light forever, shining as the sun. When you move in me, till all I can see is the perfect heart in the plan. When you move in me, all I can see is my perfect heart in the plan. You turn me to original creation before I fell for the separation. Breathe into me divine inspiration until peace returns to every nation. Until peace returns to every nation. When you move thank y'all for being here this morning. This is part 2 of a little 2-part kind of series that focuses on the powers of divine order and zeal primarily, but as any 12 powers discussion goes, it kind of connects to some of the other, if not all, of the other 12 powers in one way or another, because we know that the 12 powers are not intended to be used in isolation of the other powers and faculties. And with today's subject, zeal, it is particularly important that zeal be aligned with other powers. While it is a very powerful motivating energy in our lives, you know, words like enthusiasm, passion, desire, these kinds of words are associated with zeal. We don't really use the word zeal very much anymore, not really. And one of the reasons why is because the word zealous, no one wants to be called zealous, full of zeal. No one wants to be called a zealot, right? Because that embodies that unchecked, unbridled passion for something, that one singular kind of focus. And when the energy of our zeal can get in that groove and it kind of disconnects from the others, then yeah, we're going to get real tunnel focused. Maybe this has some benefit in moderation if we're leading towards the completion of a project and we're allowing that to fuel our focus in a singular direction. But many times we're not so aware, you know, about how we're misdirecting our zeal. The easy way for us to think about this is almost like in A Course in Miracles language. It's kind of a binary choice, choosing between love and fear, love and fear. So how do I know that I'm directing my zeal in the right direction? So I'm going to give you a binary choice. Is my passion for this, is my enthusiasm for this, whatever it may be, is it ego-driven from my personal human desires and wants and beliefs and so forth, or is it divinely driven, that I've aligned myself with a higher sense of where I direct the energy of the zeal? The energy of zeal is given to us freely. It's like being in a state of grace. We all have that capacity. We've used it in various ways over the course of our life. We've not used it. If we're feeling listless in our life, for example, if we've kind of gotten to a groove and we're stuck in a rut kind of thing, and it's the same old, and we're trying to figure out how to re-leverage our lives, recalibrate, readjust. Remember, we have a power of divine order, and that's our capacity to allow us to adjust. So we have that faculty, we have that facility. And while I'm thinking about it, listen, before I get too zealous with this talk, will you keep me mindful of time?
I will.
Because as y'all know, I can get zealous.
You have a lot to say.
Well, there's a lot to say, but I made a decision this morning, and set an intention this morning, that I wanted to allow some time for our conversation cafe after, because it's not so much what Charles says or anybody else says, or even what I say from my own experience as to how zeal has expressed itself. It's also important for each one of us to identify how that's going in our own lives. And so I'd like to make sure we allow enough time to allow people to share how that looks in their life. That's why, because I will get zealous and I will forget about time. And you'll be going, hey, Rick, wrap it up. So do keep me mindful. And by the way, it is 10:56, okay. So the binary choice then on the zeal is that ego-driven or divinely driven. And we're in charge of that recalibration. We may not be consciously aware of every instance in which we're doing this, but as I believe it was Lissy was sharing with me, we were talking this morning, that we get into a groove, we start choosing in a direction, and we create a habit. And as we're creating that habit of choosing in a direction, the first part of that journey, we're really conscious about the times that we're choosing it. Sometimes having to willfully choose, no, not that, this, and do that. But as we continue choosing in that direction, we reattune ourselves, and then over the course of time, we forget that we're continuing to choose that direction. It becomes a habit, but a habit's not, we're not automatons. But we are, what becomes habitual, we are making that decision to continue to follow that habit, whether it's positive or negative consequences in our lives, we are choosing that. And getting our power back is becoming aware that we're choosing that. That's the first step. It's like, oh yeah, I am choosing that. No, it's not. Wow. That, it kind of puts us into a state of what Charles would call chemicalization. The psychologist would call it cognitive dissonance. Oh, I've got a new insight in the way I saw things before. Now I can't go back to the way things were before because this epiphany is so clear. If I ignore this, then I'm willfully ignoring it. Can't do that. Calibrate. Adjust. The power of order allows you to make that calibration from that ego-driven. Because I guarantee you, a good tell for you, if you're choosing from the ego orientation with your zeal, you're going to have a lot of sense of insecurity and fear permeating throughout the experience because it's coming from a place of loss. You're trying to hold on to something that you can't actually lose, right? And so becoming aware how the ego gets involved in that, there's going to be fear in play if you're going from the ego direction. If you're choosing from the divine direction and applying your passion, applying your energy in your higher good, truly your higher good, then it'll come naturally. And there'll be that feeling that you have honored your own self by your choice to choose your highest good. You will know that you made a new decision, that you are creating a new habit. Every time you choose and make that choice over the course of time, you continue to affirm your own higher self. You continue to align yourself, adjust your orientation to be back in alignment with the divine good, with the divine law, with the law of one, the law of unity. You're in charge of that for yourself. I'm in charge of that for myself. Collectively, we don't owe it to others so much as we owe it to ourselves to make this highest good choice. As we do that and we embody that, we move through the world interacting with people from that frame of mind, from that state of consciousness. That's where things begin to change. That lyric in that song, help me be the change in the world I wish to see. It's not an original thought. Sort of borrowing from Gandhi and reframing that idea, because that idea that Gandhi embodies underlying truth. Doesn't really matter about time or religion or culture. It embodies a truth. That's what we need to be attentive for in our process as students, as human beings on the planet. Don't be as concerned with what other people are choosing or how they're choosing, what the motivations are. Be clear with what your own motivations are. Be clear with what your own choices are. And it's a high degree of personal responsibility, and I said a long time ago, early on in this process, in SEE studies and everything, is that the awareness that it is the fear of assuming personal responsibility for your life, the fear that exists in that decision point. If I assume personal responsibility for my life, wow, a lot of things will change. I can no longer tell my victim story. If I take responsibility for my life, whatever my victim story is, I can no longer tell it and be plugged into it as if something out here is taking away my power. So the victim story has to go out. And if the victim story has to go out, and that's how you've defined yourself, by your victim story, now you need a story to replace it. And you don't know what that is, and it feels scary, and so you don't decide to take personal responsibility, and you stay stuck with the story for a little while longer. But ultimately, you're going to come right back to the same crossroad. Your life will inevitably lead you back to that same decision point, because that decision point is about whether you're choosing from a way that is disempowering you or choosing with an energy that will transform your life and empower you. That's the foundational choice. Of course, in Miracles would call it love and fear. For me, that works. That's easy to see the world as love and fear. Everything. Like even if I'm anxious if the Astros are going to lose the game, that's my fear no matter how much I love the Astros. Right? It's with us every single day. In so many ways that oftentimes we don't recognize that despite our best intentions, despite our spiritual disciplines and everything, despite our intention to choose love perfectly, that we're still choosing fear thousands of times a day. The question is, are we putting our zeal behind those fearful choices? Are we putting the zeal behind our higher good? Which way are we applying it, right? You know, Charles famously said that it's a corny quote to me, like as a writer and everything, but it's historic. You know, I fairly sizzle with zeal. You know, and go about and do that which is what is ought to be done by me. Wasn't that what we were parsing out a minute ago? Ought to be done by me, not should. Should implies a responsibility and an energy of compliance, but ought brings the freedom of choice back to you. It's like I can look around, I can figure out a lot of things during the course of my day that ought to be done by me, starting with cleaning the garage. Right? There's a lot of things that ought to be done by me. Right? But you know, where am I putting my choice? How am I spending my time? What is the activity of my thinking and feeling nature going on in my consciousness? Just like unity principle number 3 says to us all the time, that ongoing activity, it's always happening. It's never not happening. And in all that activity, we're choosing love and fear. Love and fear, tens of thousands of times a day. That's a fact. If we become aware of it, we bring our consciousness, we bring in a new engagement with that activity, take charge of that, take responsibility for that. We have all kinds of creative faculties, spiritual faculties within us that will help us to master that process, because everything is intended for your transformation anyway. This is all intended for your personal transformation. You have all the tools that you need. If we're going to be zealous about something, if we're going to be zealots about something, it should be our highest good. It should be for transformative experiences in our lives that raise the bar for us. Even incrementally. It doesn't have, you don't have to make a big generational leap kind of thing. It's incremental, and we can do the incremental good. That's how people get into the Hall of Fame, by improving at the margins. Right? They improve at the margins. They continue to chip away, get the extra base hit a week over the course of a season. Wind up batting 300 instead of 250. One extra hit a week. I can do one extra hit a week. Can you do one extra hit a week in your life? I mean, like really consciously look at some place that maybe you've been resisting taking care of. Somebody has a request for love they need, request for support they need, and you become available. Whereas before you might have let it go. Get that extra base hit. Do you have any idea the consequences, the accumulative consequences of that over the course of the weeks and months in your life? As you do that, you continue to put deposits into that affirmative experience. You know that you are intending to be transformative in your own life and for others. You will know. You will know that you've stepped beyond your fear. If there's a purpose for zeal, it's to drive that. It's to drive our creative, inspired ideas. You don't have to be just creative and inspired. I was thinking about this the other day. Oftentimes when speakers are speaking and we make these kind of name checks of different kinds of vocations and things that we can follow, the ministers tend to, and I've done it too, name check all the creative endeavors as if that's the only one that has any value. And it's not. Almost every activity, even engineering, is creative. It's creative problem solving. There's math and some other kinds of things involved that might not necessarily be involved. Oh wait, in music, yes, there is math involved, because see, it's like it's all the same. It's just a manifestation. So literally speaking, any person doing their job, whatever it is, doing it joyfully, doing it with passion, because it's their authentic self. It doesn't matter what capacity they serve. They could be the barista at your local coffee shop. But if they are embodying that passion for life and everything, and being of service and being available, they're as valuable as anyone else on the planet, because they're lifting the consciousness. They're allowing it. Y'all have heard that story about those guys in the Pike's Market in Seattle, the fish guys?
Yeah, I've seen them.
It's like that. I mean, I taught that book for a little while, and it was just like the Four Agreements. It was just these 4 simple principles that they embodied as they went about doing what they do during the course of the day, and it just becomes a cultural phenomenon, because one of their goals was to make somebody's day.
Yeah.
That was one of their goals. That was one of their 4 agreements. Make somebody's day. So in any interaction where they're selling fish to these people, every interaction was an opportunity to make somebody's day. And it made a difference because the ripple of that, effect of that throughout the community over the course of time was cumulative to where it became a thing, became a book, became a phenomenon.
What book is that? The book
The book is just called Fish, I think. It's like you'll find it like in business management type things because it kind of comes from that business orientation. It's a way to inspire passion and zeal in your workforce. I mean, really is what it is, by distilling it down to some 4 simple little concepts that weren't necessarily business related. You know, like learn this, punch this widget and that widget. It was more philosophical, and the employees just embodied it. And it still continues to make a huge difference. It's going on right now. There's people in the fish market, like while we're sitting here meeting, they're opening up the fish market at Pike's Place right now. You know, that's what's going on. It's going on all over the planet. We have our opportunities where we're planted. Right? That's what that move in me was about. It's like, help me to be that change. To fuel that energy. Honest to God, I have no idea. I will tell you, no matter what I choose to do, write, play music, whatever, I honestly have no idea if I'm actually doing the thing that God wants me to do. Really? Like it becomes part of that. Is there something else that I should be doing that I'm resisting letting go of this form to get into opportunity for another form? I don't know. But I have to keep bringing that back to God. And I can have friends to share it with and to voice it out loud. And sometimes, y'all ever have that experience where you're confounded by something, but you got a friend that's listening to you, actively listening to you, and you're telling the story, and then as you're telling the story, right in the middle of you telling the story, the light bulb goes off, the insight goes off. It's just like Dorothy in the Wizard of Oz. The answer was always within. You know?
Yeah.
Same thing with unity. You have that zeal is that passion. It's what drives us. I think I got time to tell this story, and then we'll go to the meditation. Because this is one of the ways that I learned about zeal in studying the 12 powers. Do any of y'all know who Paul Hasselbeck is? He teaches at Unity worldwide. He's a metaphysics guy. He was teaching. We were in one of his classes during the LUT experience, and he's come around one of us at a time, and you draw a card out of this deck of cards, and it would have, probably one of the 12 powers on there, right? And then you had to spontaneously, answer, give a little pitch, and then answer some questions. And I drew love. Okay, I should be back over in the camera. So I drew love in this deck of cards, and so I just go, love is the greatest power. Quoted scripture, like did the whole thing, and then I really honestly believe that all of our spiritual powers start with love. That's the foundational choice we're making. I had a whole argument for it, and as I finished it up, Paul goes, "What comes before love?" And I was like, I thought about it long and hard. I mean, I literally just kind of did that. I don't think there's anything greater than love. He said, I'm not saying what was greater than love. I said what came before it. And I was equating what came before as being more primary, more foundational, therefore more superior. And so we parsed it out, and Paul talked all around this subject, and the word he had for it that he finally got me around to having a discussion about was the word desire.
Oh.
And that he was promoting the idea that the word desire or embodied that impulse that caused love to go forward into action. And I've thought about that for 10 years now. I've mulled it over, I've written it over, I've thought about it, and as I was preparing this talk this week for Zeal, it finally just hit me. It's like he's talking about zeal. Mm-hmm. Zeal is what is that impulse to drive us to make a decision about where we direct our love. It's a primal force. And I would even make a case that zeal, which they place at the base of the brain, the medulla oblongata, is kind of wired in nerve-wise and everything throughout the body, and all the way down to our root chakra, which is the life source where Charles would put the power of life. That's that generative power. So it's that when you get a download, anybody ever gotten a download like you was like, wow, where'd that come from? You got just a feeling in your body like, you got a download. That's that generative source of life, and it's connecting with those powers. And the zeal is going to breathe life into it, right? Get the impulse, breathe life into it. Now it's got to link up with it's got to link up with judgment and discernment and wisdom, and it's got to link up with imagination. How is this going to look in our life? What kind of experience are we going to go after, right? It's going to be linking up. If it doesn't link up with that love, that greater love, then it's an ego-driven impulse. Mm-hmm. It's purely for the sensual satisfaction of the ego, right? But if we pair that with a transformative experience, a creative transformative experience, a spiritual transformative experience, then we got something. Then we kind of move into a greater expression. Really, when you get that right down to it, I really honestly believe that's what people really want in their life anyway. They want to feel more powerful than whatever. Even these guys who are ego-driven, and they get on the power trip down the road, they still just want to go for more power. It's never enough. Right? We're striving for a greater expression. And so zeal will help you fuel that. But we have to be mindful of keeping it in check by making sure that we're filtering it through our discernment. Is that wise for me to, quit my job, sell my stuff, and go busking with my guitar in Hong Kong? Is that a wise move? I might want to filter that impulse. Wow, that sounded good for a minute.
I did.
And you might want to filter that through your powers of discernment. So it's that kind of thing. Listen to, and that's what I want to. We're going to go into meditation here, and when we get into the talk and after talk, that's what I want you to be thinking about through the meditation and into the circle later is like just kind of some observations. It doesn't have to be, it could be reporting on a way that you can see how you've had your zeal in play in something that wasn't necessarily in your best interest, or attempts to fuel some creative dream that you might have right now, whatever it is that you haven't allowed your passion to really get behind for whatever reason. So I want to be thinking about those kinds of things. So take a breather, right? Am I okay? It's like 11. I'm showing 11:15. That should be. That should be good. So let's follow that sweet space. Setting our intention on some time in the silence, some time to reconnect with these 12 power centers, this Christ energy within us. We connect with that with the intention of clarifying divine order in our lives. We know that we have this faculty of divine order, this capacity that allows us to adjust and recalibrate our choices towards effects and consequences that transform our experience. And so we acknowledge the presence and the power of this divine order faculty within us. And we pair that up, that awareness of divine order and our capacity to adjust, we pair that up with our power of zeal, our passion, that generative energy that flows through and into and breathes into all that we create in the world. With these two power centers connected, we allow them to align with the other faculties, with love, with wisdom, strength, imagination, understanding, discernment. We know we have all these faculties, and so we set our intention to link this order, this zeal, and bring them into a higher expression with our other 10 available powers to us, to synergize our experience and transform our lives, starting today. So as we go into the silence, we already know that deep inner truth about that which is longing to be expressed in our lives. And so we attune to that. We bring that to Spirit. We bring that to God. We bring that to the divine truth. And we ask, help me express this, to breathe this into this experience. Help me to transform my life. And so we know what that is. We know what we intend. And so we listen for that guidance from within as we connect with the indwelling presence in the silence. And as we begin to gently draw our attention back into our respective spaces, back into this room here at Casa Toulouse with those that are assembled here with us in person and those in our community are with us virtually in their own respective spaces, we know that all of those spaces are connected, that there are many rooms in the Father's house. So let's follow that sweet space. Creative longings. We allow that divine zeal, that divine enthusiasm to infuse our lives. So we say, thank you, living, loving Spirit, for the power and for your presence. We pray in the name and the nature of the indwelling Christ. And so it is, and so we allow it to be. Amen. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as Creator, in oneness all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.